You have to be mindful of who you're giving access to your thinking. If I'm running by financial scenarios, I don't ask my dad. Believable is defined as the following. They've produced the outcome you wish to produce consistently over an extended period of time. Because most of the time we ask people guidance to be like, show me how I'm right. This is coming from the rafters instead of being on the field. You need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce outcomes. You have to see what's true, not what you're imagining to be true, or what you like to be true, but what's actually true. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. What's up, Cyrus? Let's jump in real quick.
Do you ask people for advice on things that they've never done? Or do you typically just not ask people for advice on if they haven't sold this many houses or if they don't live the life you want to live? Do you just typically not ask them advice?
So this is important. So we have to keep in mind that everybody has value. Yes, in the eyes of God, value.
Right.
What I'm also aware of is as it pertains to producing favorable outcomes or triangulating ideas, I want to make sure that the people I'm triangulating ideas with are what I would call believable. Believable is defined as the following. They've produced the outcome you wish to produce consistently over an extended period of time. Because what that demonstrates is that they have a track record of good judgment and that there's some system that they're following. If there's a system, they can share it with you. If I'm running by financial scenarios, I don't ask my dad. Love him. He doesn't have a demonstrated track record of good judgment in that area. Maybe have a conversation with Jose. Hey, here's what I'm thinking. He's 38 and owns 58 doors. It's probably worth 10 million bucks. I'll ask the guy that I pay money to help me with financial decisions and kind of tax planning and stuff. Because he not manages money, but he is a high level tax planner for people that have $100 million in net worth. Yeah, he's probably a good guy to run scenarios by. So be mindful of who you give access to your thinking and who you're triangulating with, and believability weight their guidance. So in other words, let's say somebody gives you a passionate, kind of convicted sermon on what they believe is true in the secular realm of business. Well, I believability weight their guidance. Cool. I hear you. I'm also aware I'm not seeing a demonstrated track record of good judgment over an extended period of time. You've never actually produced the outcome. This is coming from the rafters instead of being on the field. So I will give that this weight. And a good example of that, there's a really good book called Principles, written by a guy named Ray Dalio. And Ray, he's really ahead of his time. He manages money at a super high level. And he has the largest hedge fund in the world. He started out of his garage. But there was a time in his life, Jack, he made a big bet on bonds in South America or whatever. He was right, but he was wrong on the timing. He lost everybody's money. Everybody. Family, friends, loved ones. He had to borrow money from his father-in-law. He lost it all. And he was I never want that to happen again. And the issue is he was right. He was just wrong on timing. But he's when I go back and I look at interviews and I watch myself and I see what I was doing, I was so arrogant and I had a lot of hubris because I wasn't asking people, what could I not be seeing? What am I missing? Most of the time we ask people guidance to be show me how I'm right. Not hey, show me what I'm missing. So, when you called me and you were hey, I got this awesome opportunity, bro. What is it? You're this developer, he's going to give me his whole community to sell out. And I'm all right. And you're pumped, bro. You're yeah, bro, it's $120,000 in commission. And I'm okay. And I started asking you some questions. I said, well, has it been listed before? You were yeah, twice. Red flag. Then I'm well, how much time do you think this is going to take, Jack? You're well, I don't know. You were just blinded by the 120. You thought that was a lot. I'm well, he's probably going to require you to be on site, show the property. Does he have a model? Is he going to have you sit in it on the weekends? And you started to think about this. I'm yeah, if you calculate it, you end up making $10 an hour. Let me ask you a question, Jack. You were yeah. I'm how much money did you make on your last creative deal? You're 50 grand. I'm how much time did it take you? And you were 5 hours. I'm okay, so is that a better use of time? You were yeah. And you're man, I called you thinking this was a great opportunity. And now I'm hanging up the phone being this is not an opportunity. Yeah. Does that make sense? So what Ray does though, once he made that poor decision, and he lost everything. It wasn't he was right on timing, but he was right on the kind of what he was seeing. And directionally he was right, but he was wrong on timing. And he lost everything. So then he set about, when he makes decisions, the following. He's way ahead of his time because we're starting to see this now with chat. You can use it as a co-pilot. So what he would do is he would surround himself with people that were really believable. So let's say he's going to make a bet on currency in another country. And he has all these, he's got traders, he's got people who used to work at Goldman Sachs trading in currency, but then he has a guy who sat the treasurer for Britain, the country of Britain. Who do you think has the most believability in that room? That guy. So what they'll do is they'll triangulate ideas, but then they'll weight it based on what he's saying. But what he also did, Jack, is he would write down the principles of every decision, why he came to that conclusion, and feed it into an algorithm. He was doing that 20 years ago, bro. So the idea is you triangulate ideas with believable people, First, you gather a lot of information on your own to come up with your own kind of idea or conclusion. Then you come to somebody who's believable and you say, hey, show me what I'm missing here. Is this accurate? Is my thinking accurate? Just so you know, a higher compliment is not that you're smart, it's that you think clearly. So is my thinking accurate? Then he runs it through the algorithm. Then what you end up with is the closest thing you can to the truth, and you need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce outcomes. You have to see what's true, not what you're imagining to be true or what you like to be true, but what's actually true. And that'll therefore allow you to make better decisions. And you don't want to be right. You don't need to be right 100% of the time. I just want to be more right than I am wrong, like 70, 80% of the time. So to put that, like I made a custom, and I'm doing this, just so you know. I still do this. I had a scenario that I ran through and I called that guy, Justin, the guy who helps me with taxes and finance stuff. And I'm like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Is my thinking accurate? What do you think? But then I also have a custom GPT that I created where I loaded in all my financials, all my business stuff, everything that's going on. And I'll be like, here's the scenario. What do you think? And in doing so, what are you doing? You're triangulating to get the closest thing you can to the truth. And then you can make a decision based on that. And that'll increase the chances that you'll get the outcome that you want.
I guess the part that's harder for me is that, and I know that I have to get over it, it's that like the people that I ask for advice to get where I'm at, like that are in my immediate circle, like the agent that I talked to you that, we had a group call with, and like some other extended family members, I still want to like run ideas by them to like get like this like hit of like, oh, you're doing good job. But now some of the ideas that I throw at them aren't, in their opinion, good ideas.
Yeah, they're beyond the scope of their thinking. So like the challenge
makes me feel like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah. No. And the self-awareness is like what you're really going to them for is more like emotional significance to be like, that a boy, you're doing a good job.
Exactly. So
there's an awareness of that like, truthfully, that's a low level like mental map where I'm looking for like the social currency of like acceptance from others. So there's the awareness of that. And then the second is that you have to be mindful of, again, who you're giving access to your thinking. Because to your point, what happens is they'll be like, oh, I don't know. And then they'll start to sow seeds of doubt. And that's not helpful. They mean well, but it's not helpful. Keeping in mind that type of thinking is what keeps them where they're at. Yeah. So you need to, that's why you got to be so careful. And that's why you hear me say all the time, proximity is power, and be really, really mindful who you give access to your thinking. As it pertains to business, you can still go to them and have loving relationships with them. But like business wise, like I'm not going to talk to them about it because they don't understand.
That makes sense. Yeah. It's hard though. Cause it's definitely, like you said, it's like an emotion.
I know, but like sometimes like, sometimes Carla will pull me aside. She's like, what are you doing? Like your mom's never going to like, what, like,
right. Why?
I'll try to sit down and be like, well, mom, do you actually know the way monetary policy works? Like, no, bro, like that's never. And that can be a challenge because what you're recognizing is you're beginning to outgrow your previous support system. By the way, the majority of the mental maps that I've acquired over time, I've taken from other people. So you don't have to be like the most brilliant person on the planet. You can learn from the most brilliant people and take their best stuff. So Naval says you need 4 things in order to, and I think he's one of the smartest people on the planet. I personally do. I think Ray's in that category too, but I definitely think Naval is. And he said you need 4 things to build wealth in the physical world. Right? First is you need specialized knowledge. The specialized knowledge of what to say and how to say it, how to convert, how to do off-market deals, right? You need specialized knowledge. The way you know it's specialized because you can't learn it in school. If you need a degree to do it, you probably won't make a lot of money. So you need specialized knowledge. The second thing you need is tools. Tools will be things like CRMs, like leads are tools, you know what I mean? Like tools to do your job, to do your craft. The third thing you need is leverage. But there's 4 forms of leverage. Lowest form of leverage is labor. We all get stuck there. Why? Because our parents told us just to work hard, and that's it. The problem with that is that you always have to be there to carry logs, yes? But there's labor, and then there's capital, which is money working for you. Works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but it's isolated in where it can work. It can only work in a building, right? It's limited geographically. 2 new forms of leverage that are new and have radically changed the planet in the last 30, 40 years is media, because it's not constrained to a geographic location. It works anywhere on the planet where there's an internet connection. And the highest form of leverage is software, because it costs almost no money to replicate or duplicate once you create it. We're all constrained by our understanding of leverage. Most agents, Jack, most business people are operating at the 2 lowest levels, which are capital and labor. So I had a conversation with a guy that I've known for a long time. He vibrates at a high frequency. He's done a lot, and he's really done a lot specifically within the realm like labor and capital. So he's used his labor to raise a lot of money as a real estate agent, made $3, $4, $5 million in certain years. And then he invested that money. Great. But he's in a mastermind group with people that are the same. So what I said to him, and I said it with love, I was like, hey, just so you know, the people that you're with don't understand leverage that well. They don't understand the new forms. He's like, well, yes, they do. I said, no, they don't. He said, what do you mean? I said, do any of them have any meaningful amount of attention? He's like, no. I'm like, so they don't understand it. They don't even think it's important, so they don't focus on it. So I need you to hear me. You may like them as people, but you will never graduate to another level of thinking if you continue to hang out with them and triangulate ideas with them.
By their perception of reality.
Yes. And by their mental maps that they're currently operating under, 100 million %. Remember how I told you that building wealth isn't physical, it's mental? Oh, and then the last thing that Naval tells us, and this leads back to it. See, we radically underestimate that. We think it's like, oh, I got to be more consistent and I got to like all this stuff. You know what the last one is that you need to build wealth? So you need specialized knowledge, you need tools, you need leverage. And again, there's 4 forms within that: forms of leverage, labor, labor, capital, code, software. The 4th thing you need is good judgment. Do you know how many agents I see who don't run decisions by somebody who's believable that ends up creating a serious problem for themselves because they spent $20,000 on something that they hoped would solve their problems, or $10,000 on they hope they solve their problems, or they bought somebody's pitch on something? Bro, it happens all the time. Or they made a ton of money and then they pay and lifestyle, operating under the assumption that they were always going to be able to produce that level of income. I had a woman at the Do More Deal Summit came up to me, broker, introduced herself as a broker, which is always like, okay. I'm like, well, tell me your story. What's your story? Oh, I crushed it, man. Like I owned a title company in 2004, 5, 6. I made so much money. I'm like, great. And then my next question is, did you invest any of that money? She looked at me with this recognition and said, no. And she said, in fact, because of that, when the market changed, I lost everything. I lost my 2 houses that I had. I lost my car. I lost all the toys. And I had to go become a real estate agent. And then what she said to me was like, yeah, and then but I had to have my own thing. So look at what's the underlying root of the issue?
Ego, pride.
Oh yeah, buddy. And a loving father disciplines his children. But she's not learning the lesson. I'm like, all right, well, tell me about your own thing. What is it? Well, it's me and 7 agents. I'm like, great. What'd you guys do in volume last year? As soon as I ask her that, she starts like, not answer directly. She's like, well, we're a team. I'm like, yeah, that's great. How much? Was it 10 million? Was it 50 million? Was it 80 million? How much? 12 million, her and 7 agents. And I was like, well, I'm curious what percentage, and I know the answers to all these questions, by the way, what percentage of that 12 million was you versus them? She's like, yeah, it was pretty much all me. I said, well, I'm going to say something to you, and I mean it really respectfully. She's like, yeah. I'm like, so you're the queen of the Crapheads? What would be the only reason that she would stay in that vehicle? Pride. Has she learned her lesson? For the most of us, we think we're great decision makers. I don't know if that's true. So we just make decisions on our own, like without even running it by people, without even like triangulating ideas with people that are believable. We're like, yeah, we think it's a good idea. It's like, wow. Guys, personally, I still do this regularly. The circle that I triangulate with is tight, but like I still do. I'll call Jose. Hey, bro, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? I call a guy that I pay $20,000 a year to like give me guidance on certain things. Hey, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? So I need good judgment as well.
If we can get past like 2 I don't knows, then it's kind of hard for them not to flush it out.
It's normal, bro. You're a stranger. Once my foot's in the door, bro, boom, like I'm in there. Am I demonstrating that I am an expert here?
Yes.
I heard a story from Eric Thomas. His wife had her 2nd baby. Everything went well first time. 2nd baby's like, great. Contraction comes, it's time. And he heard the nurse say, go get the doctor. What's happening is your daughter's umbilical cord is wrapped around her neck. I was in the presence of a master.
In the initial conversation with probates, do you really try to get a hold of if they're selling or if they're not selling before making an appointment?